And of course, the story is about serving some of the poorest and most underserved communities in the world. But it's interesting in the book that a few presidents pop up as well. So we've got the president of Ireland and the president of Burundi, at least. So tell us about where Mary McAleese came into the story, Steve.
Oh well, the Mary story for me, I had the privilege of taking Trevor's 140,000 words and editing it down to a book that might keep us interested. And when I got to the Mary at the Fields of Life Academy, every time I typed a particular paragraph, I ended up in tears. And the story is that it's one of these other things which there's nothing contrived in this book. It all just unfolds literally. And so Trevor's on the phone with the Ugandan office and they're talking about different things, and it appears that the president's there, and Trevor jokes about maybe getting an invite, and they get an invite, and Trevor's not going because he's back home. And then the phone rings, and Trevor's told that within literally a week, the president wants to come and open this school, and they can't really believe it. And then all kinds of things have to happen because there's no fence or gate in the school at this point. And best Ugandan thing, and one of the phrases from Trevor's dad I picked up, which I use all the time now, is it's better looking at it than looking for it. Well, Uganda never looks at anything. You don't have anything. You don't have a fridge to have things in, so you're never storing up for the next day. You're always picking up on the day. So Trevor had to make a quick flight. He had to get out there. He had to do, I think they're painting this probably as Mary's helicopter takes off. So that's part of the story. But then, of course, in the midst of all that craziness of getting on a flight and getting to Uganda and getting the school fixed, Trevor hasn't thought for a minute about how he's going to deal with Mary when she comes off. President Mary McAleese is coming off this helicopter. And there's this wonderful bit where he's walking out. Somebody says to him, "We'll go out and greet your president." And Trevor suddenly in his head, the next step is, I have to greet my president. What do I say to her? And he's walking across towards this helicopter, wondering what he's going to say to her. And when he reaches her, Mary says, Trevor, give me a big hug. Well, for me, there was just something about that moment both for the president of Ireland, who I've had the privilege of meeting since, who just, that's an amazing statement. But just in the middle of nowhere in Uganda, Trevor Stevenson, from the first step on that flight home, is now welcoming the president of Ireland into a school that was built because the LC1s came below the tree. You can see the story unfold into this remarkable tale of, personally, I just see God underneath it, surrounding it, above it, and in it. It's an amazing story, and Mary's chapter is brilliant.
And then the president of Burundi comes to Northern Ireland, Trevor. How on earth did that happen?
Yeah, that's another long story. But we were always getting letters to build schools from people that we'd never met. And to be honest, a lot of them went into the bin because you get to know the genuine. But I got a letter. We had never been to Burundi. I think we had built one school in Rwanda. And I got this letter from a lady, Anita, I remember her well, asking us, would we ever come and build a school? Now, the letter, I think, Steve, is in the book. I think we found the letter, and I think it's still in the book. It just touched my heartstrings, and I contacted the Ugandan office, said, is it possible to go to Burundi? They said, no, there's too much danger still. They're still fighting. There's civil war. I said, as soon as you think it's safe to go to Burundi, I would like to go and visit this lady's project, or what she was wanting to do. So about a year later, got word that, yeah, it's now safe to go to Burundi. So we went to Burundi. We visited Anita's, where she wanted to build a school, which we eventually did build a school. But at the same time, we were brought to other church leaders, and we built a school, not Anita's school. We built another one first, and then Anita's school. But this other school, they invited the president of Burundi to come and open the school. Now, I wasn't there for this opening. He arrived and he couldn't believe the school and who had built it and how they'd built it so quickly, and et cetera, et cetera. He says, whenever these Fields of Life people come, whenever the people from head office come, I want to invite them to State House and greet them and thank them for what they're doing. And so we had to do that. I mean, if you're invited by the president of a country, you don't say, no, I'm not coming. We went, and we were fed and looked after. And so that led to conversations that would we consider coming to Burundi. And so there was a deal not signed, but it was by word of mouth only, that Fields of Life would build the school, the local church would run the school, and the government would pay the teachers in the school. And so we ended up building 16 schools in Burundi at that time. And we were backwards and forwards, and anytime we were there, we had to go to State House to have a meal, and he used to have a kind of a worship service at night, and you'd have to speak at it and whatever. And he brought us on a whistle-stop tour of Burundi. Now, I don't speak French, and he didn't speak an awful lot of English, but I had to ride with him. There were 17 vehicles in the convoy as we skittled around Burundi. The first vehicle in the convoy was a Jeep with a massive gun on the front of it. The last vehicle was an ambulance, so it really filled me with a lot of fear this journey. But anyway, on the journey, one of our directors that was with us said to the president, "You should come to Northern Ireland for a visit, and because you have a lot to teach us about, post-conflict and da 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 da." And Northern Ireland had, with the peace agreement and everything. So the next thing, anyway, before we knew it, he said he would come. Now, how can we invite a president to anywhere? Now, he wanted an official invitation, which should come from, I presume, the Prime Minister or the Queen, probably the Prime Minister at the time. Of course, coming to Northern Ireland was a little bit difficult to that. So anyway, eventually a letter from Martin McGuinness and Ian Paisley was suffice, and he came to Northern Ireland on a state visit and whistled around Northern Ireland. And so I rode around with him in the Queen's vehicle, which I went to close the door on the Jeep, and I couldn't manage to pull it closed. It was so heavy. So no, that was an interesting time when he came.
Do you know, I met him when he came.
Right. Yeah.
One of the visits was to the Peace Wall in West Belfast, and he met. Were you there, Trevor? He met with.
I would have been with him all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember it really well because he said he'd just been up at Stormont, and he had been so impressed by our peace process. But when he came and saw the Peace Wall still existed, he sort of said, "I look at your peace process very differently now, and you'll only have real peace here when this wall comes down." I thought that was really interesting observation.